Well, we have heard in this week, really, that the Australian newspaper has revealed that the federal government's COVIDSafe app didn't uncover a single contact of COVID-19 cases in the outbreaks that we saw over the holiday season. I'm joined now by Chris Griffith. He's the technology reporter at the Australian newspaper. Chris, appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Take us through this. Does that mean that the COVIDSafe app is the dud that the opposition is claiming it is? Has it actually achieved much at all since it was introduced?
Well, it achieved a bit at the start of the pandemic, I think, when it was first taken up. But of more recent times, it's kind of faded from people's attention. The government hasn't promoted it very much, and it needs to be promoted in order for people to remember to open it. So you've got to have it on your phone, you've got to keep it on your phone, and then you need to open it each day. Now, I kind of noticed this a bit because over the holidays I asked my friends that I was spending time with if they used it, and no one said that they did. And so I rang each of the state and territory health departments and found that in New South Wales they said it wasn't needed. The contact tracing that they had was more than sufficient. In Victoria, it was opened 14 times, but no contacts were found. It hadn't been accessed in Queensland. It was not accessed in South Australia. And the rest of the states, of course, and territories didn't really have community transmission to need it. So it hasn't done very much. But then there's been problems as well with the Bluetooth on it and iPhones not emitting at first a Bluetooth signal when the app was, unless the app was in the foreground. There was a whole range of problems, and there's still the underlying concern that it's not a ubiquitous solution. It's based on contacts 1.5 metres apart over 15 minutes. But as we've seen, people can get coronavirus at much longer distances and at much shorter transmissions, as occurred in Barella just recently. So there's been a lot of problems. It's a really good idea. It may contribute to, on the edges, to getting some contacts. Certainly the Chief Health Medical Officer, Professor Paul Kelly, is still encouraging people to use it. But it was a great idea to try it, but it hasn't worked. The generic version that Apple and Google produced has worked a little bit better. There have been problems in the US with each state trying to cobble together their own apps, which has been very difficult. But in Ireland, when they've used it, I think it found something like 5,800 notifications to people to go and get tested. So it was useful there, but it's not a ubiquitous solution. And I think the point I was making in the story I wrote yesterday was that sometimes complex systems aren't the best way of doing things, and we've got a much simpler QR code system that people are more aware of every time they go out. There's cashiers telling you they won't serve you unless you actually scan the QR code, and it's a simpler system and it seems to have more potential.
Well, I understand that Australia modelled our COVIDSafe app on Singapore's app, the Trace Together app, which I understand has now been rolled in to the tracing app and the QR code entry app into the one platform. Why didn't we do that here? As we know, as you were alluding to there, the QR code system here in Australia is different in every state. There doesn't seem to be one uniform plan on that front. Was there a thought process that went into that?
Well, in Singapore, you're right. In Singapore, they started thinking about rolling the two together. That's Trace Together and their QR code type system, Safe Entry. And the value of that is that with one system, if you need to go to a place, and it's still actually in pilot, Safe Entry, but if you need to go to a place, you need to have that same app to get into the place, but also it's a contact tracing app. Now, there's been big problems in Singapore, none the least being that police have decided they'll have the right to that health data, which is a huge no-no, a great breach of trust if that was to happen in Australia. But that would have helped. But it happened, I think, the QR code system in Australia happened more organically. Pubs were first asked to keep manual lists and people would write their names on this list, probably using the same pen that 50 people before them had used. It's not exactly a good health-friendly way of doing it. And so we had these plethora of different apps that came out from private companies, and the state health departments have latched onto that to produce much more systematic QR code data monitoring systems, which is helping their state-based tracing. So I guess we've had the issue of one system at the federal level and then another system at the state levels, and the two don't mix. But I don't know if that will happen here, Ashley, because I don't think it'll be married with COVIDSafe, because the states, particularly New South Wales, South Australia, have done a really good job in putting together these QR code systems, and Victoria's spent a lot of money on a back-end system to process the data that I doubt if they'd ever want to necessarily give up those systems.
Chris, just while I've got you, I was interested to read another story in your technology space, and that's about electric vehicles. As we know, one of the challenges of electric cars is that the battery takes a long time to charge, much longer than refilling petrol in a car, for example. I saw a story, though, in the Australian. It looks like that's about to change. There's been a breakthrough.
Well, StoreDot is a company that I've been following, I guess, first in 2016. I was at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, and they were there, and they were talking about the 5-minute battery charge being on their agenda. And we've always seen, getting better batteries as the missing link in actually making battery technology more viable in terms of being able to store solar energy and wind energy and so forth, and faster charging as a necessary prerequisite to a broad take-up of electric vehicles. I don't think consumers will feel that they'll have charge anxiety if they're out on the road and they're trying to do long trips on an electric vehicle unless they can charge it quickly. So it's really important, and they've got to the stage now where they've produced prototypes, engineering models that they're going to give companies. So that's a big breakthrough. It's not just talk, it's actually product. And they've got, some companies on board as investors, including Samsung Ventures, which is really important in terms of getting this to market. But there is one more thing that has to happen, which we didn't talk about this morning, which is really important, and that is you've got to have the fast chargers capable of delivering the 5-minute charge. Now, that's quite a big obstacle itself, because you need to concentrate a lot of power close to those chargers. Now, on the stats I've got here, I think it's for fast charging with Teslas, it's 120 kilowatt hours. This system would need about 200. So we're yet to see that properly addressed. But everything else suggests that we're getting closer down that road. And I think whatever develops with batteries is really, really important in the whole EV space.
Yep, it is the direction things are travelling. Chris Griffith, a technology reporter at the Australian newspaper. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Ashley. Thank you very much.